Well, the liberal media is flabbergasted because the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, correctly understands what separation of church and state actually means and why the Establishment Clause exists. Listen to this.
The separation of church and state is a misnomer. People misunderstand it. Of course, it comes from a phrase that was in a letter that Jefferson wrote. It's not in the Constitution. And what he was explaining is they did not want the government to encroach upon the church, not that they didn't want principles of faith to have influence on our public life. It was exactly the opposite. Washington said, of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. And John Adams came next and he said, our Constitution is made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other.
It's getting easier and easier to like this guy every day. Look, I didn't like the continuing resolution, but he's doing the best he can under difficult positions, and I think it's pretty good. This is the actual truth. Jefferson's letter to the Danbury Baptist was explaining that there would be no state-sponsored church like the Church of England, and that people were free to worship in the congregation of their choice. It has nothing to do with keeping religion out of politics, but politics out of religion. Here with us to discuss this story, Lucas Miles, who just so happens to have a show called Church and State. Lucas, is he right?
Hey, it's good to be here, and you're absolutely right. I mean, look, and the speaker was right. This was not something that was part of our Constitution. This was expressly for the purpose of keeping the government out of the church's business. This would come into play when we have maybe certain governors on our West Coast that want to tell churches that they can't sing. That's where separation of church and state should actually be useful. It's not to be applicable when the church is reminding the government of a moral conscience or a moral direction here to, really see Judeo-Christian values restored. We don't want the church running the nation, but the church does have a right to speak up on issues that are facing our nation today, and I think that the speaker did a great job of laying that out.
So here's what's interesting, because this is some of the fundamental building blocks of tyranny, if you will. Our school kids, you and I, for example, taught since we were young that the separation of church and state meant no state religion, and that, the church couldn't influence government. You couldn't have a manger scene in the town square. You couldn't have a religious symbol at City Hall. You couldn't have the Ten Commandments in a courtroom. All wrong, isn't it?
All wrong, 100%. And look, our friend Rick Green and David Barton and others could probably do a much better job than I in detailing some of this. But at one time in our nation, there was actually a religious test in order to immigrate here. You had to actually prove your Christian faith in order to come into the country, because we knew, I think our founders realized that a free society was something that was dependent upon really divine guidance through that our principles of government don't work for people that don't have a moral compass or any sort of belief in a higher power. And so, look, this is something that has been twisted. The people who are trying to manipulate history have come in here to try to twist this in all sorts of ways. But the reality is that our founding documents grant us a lot of liberties when it comes to our religious freedom, and there is certainly a place for that in the public sphere. There used to be Bible studies that happened in the White House and Congress buildings and these things that were quite large. Whole worship services would happen there. And I believe, in my opinion, we need to be doing a little bit more of this today with the state of the nation.
Well, you're exactly right, by the way. I bet everybody knows this. President John Tyler, who had 15 children, apparently when God said go forth and be fruitful, he thought he was only speaking to him. John Tyler held Bible studies on a regular basis in the White House. Yeah. It was something they did on a very regular basis, and it's pretty well-known history in America. Not in today, though, because history today has been convoluted, turned on its head, really. It's important that we teach children, and frankly adults at this point, the truth about American history. Isn't it?
Yeah, and look, there are some congressmen that are, smaller groups that are gathering and doing Bible studies. I know, several of them that are part of that, but not at the way in which this was done in the past, at that level of, invitation and the numbers and those things that were there. This is something that, I think that we have been, led to believe that if you're a Christian and you talk about this in the public sphere, that you're vilified, for your belief system. Well, everybody else is talking about their religion in the public sphere. I mean, look, what we see, Marxism is a religion. BLM has become a religion. These are all sort of, kind of have their own, stratosphere of
climate change.
bigotry. Exactly.
Climate
All of
change.
that
There's
is
a religion for you.
Theological, substructure to each of these, and the other side is totally fine with really imposing their religious views into the public sphere, into the state. And I think that Christians, that it's okay. We need to be bold. We need to be outspoken about these things. You have a right to talk about your faith and to
Be
demonstrate
loud.
your faith out there, 100%.
And be proud. Yeah, be loud,
Yep.
be proud. Hey, I looked at the schedule here, Lucas. I see that a week from today on Thanksgiving, you'll be here to talk more about American
Can't
history. I
wait.
look forward to it.
I'm gonna
Thank
eat
you for
some
being
turkey
here.
before I get here too.
Attaboy. Thanks. Have a great day.
Thank you.
All right, after the break, we're going to talk more about FBI Director Chris Wray saying that the U.S. national security is more endangered than ever because of our open borders. Gee, what could possibly go wrong?